Well, I want to welcome everyone to the Confident Speaking Space. I am Tim Brown, your host, and it is absolutely a pleasure to have all of you here in the space today. And I truly appreciate your presence because I know that there are other things you could be doing right now, and I don't take it for granted that you choose to spend a little time here in the space. Even though there's something that you can gain from the space, you still could have done it in a different place, and I appreciate that. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that in the Confident Speaking Space, this is a place that we come to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And we're all focusing on trying to grow and improve ourselves so that we're able to become more confident and effective communicators. No matter what we do in life, we have to have the ability to communicate. And the more confident we are in that, and the more effective we are in our communication, the easier it is to navigate life, and opportunities just are waiting on us to show up, to take advantage of them and realize them in our lives. And we really want that for you here in this space so that when something comes your way, you aren't afraid to take advantage of the moment when it comes. And many people miss out on a lot of opportunities because they're too afraid to speak up. And in many cases, it's because they don't feel prepared and they haven't put themselves in a position to get the practice that they need to understand how to deal with any situation that you may be in when it comes to your interaction with other people. And as I said earlier, this isn't just about public speaking. While public speaking is part of it, we do talk about public speaking. We share tips and tools that can help you be more effective public speakers as well. But it goes beyond that. Everyone doesn't desire to be a public speaker per se. Everyone may not have to present in a meeting with a lot of people, but everyone does have to communicate with family members, with friends, with coworkers, or someone at some point in time. And we just want to make sure that you feel like you have the ability that no matter who you're speaking with, you know how to handle yourself and you're comfortable responding when the time comes. So that's what this space is all about. So today's topic is, it says how to overcome the fear. And I want to add to that we don't necessarily overcome it. What we do is we learn to manage it, because fear is a natural and basic human emotion that we experience. All of us experience fear. And it's amazing how many people have in their mind that they want to deny that they experience fear. No one wants to really say that they're afraid of anything. You know, I hear people say it a lot, especially men, mostly men. You know, man, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of anyone. But I mean, if you weigh 110 pounds and there's someone that's 400 pounds that's upset with you and he wants to do bad things to you, it's probably wise to be a bit fearful and do what your body is telling you to do, which is get away from that dangerous situation. So it's okay that we have fear, but what we want to do is make sure that we understand how to manage the fear. That's the most important aspect of it. And yes, there are a lot of different scenarios that fear comes into play, but I want to talk about this from the perspective more so of our communication, not that you're confronting a bear and you have to figure out how to manage your fear in front of a bear, because I definitely don't know what to tell you there. I've heard people say to just stand still and not run, but it's just hard to imagine that I'm going to stand there and wait for this bear to decide he's going to walk away. So I don't have any advice for you if you see a bear. But as it pertains to our communication, what we want to do is make sure that we understand what the fear is. The first thing we need to do is acknowledge the fear, that we have it. We have to acknowledge it. And if you don't acknowledge that something is wrong, that something is going on within you or around you, it's very difficult to fix it. It's very difficult to manage it. You have to be willing to acknowledge the fear that you have and feel in any given moment or particular point in time. And it's funny to me when I come across people that say, I don't like cats. That's a big one. I hear a lot of people say, I don't like cats. And if a cat enters their presence, you can see the terror in their face. They're running, they're cringing, and they're crossing their legs trying to get away. So it's not that they just don't like cats. For some reason, they're afraid of cats. There's a level of fear that they have of cats, and they aren't willing to admit that. So when we find ourselves in different situations, you've got to be willing to acknowledge that you feel a bit fearful about what you're being confronted with. When you're afraid to speak to someone, maybe you wanted to ask them on a date, be willing to admit, okay, I'm afraid to ask her out. That's okay. Because if you understand it, then you begin to understand what to do about it and how you're going to be able to fix it. So always be willing to acknowledge it, but you have to be honest with yourself that you are actually experiencing this fear. Once you acknowledge it, then you need to begin to understand why. And if anyone has been paying even a little bit of attention in this space, practically every space we have, or 90% of them, we always come back to the why. We need to understand the why when we're doing something, when we're having experiences, so that we're able to get down to the core of what we're dealing with. What's happening? So why are you feeling this fear? Is it based on a past experience that you had that makes you afraid in the present moment of something you may be confronted with? Is it because someone has made a comment to you and that has made you afraid, fearful, or uncomfortable to speak or to do what you need to do? Is it because of lack of preparation? When we don't feel prepared, it's easy to feel fearful because we're afraid that we're going to make a mistake and embarrass ourselves and mess up. It's natural to feel that way, but we need to understand the why. How did we get to this point? Is it the audience? Some people are uncomfortable speaking and sharing their perspectives around certain individuals. If there's someone in the room that is considered to be an expert, someone that's widely known, and you have a very valid point that could be groundbreaking, that could change everyone's perception and perspective about a particular topic, having that particular expert in the room easily makes some people fearful and afraid because you don't want to be the only person that has a different thought than this expert has. But you need to understand that the thoughts you have could be the thoughts that could reshape the way the world thinks. Every time there's been something groundbreaking in the world, in society, new inventions, new innovations, new product ideas, someone had to be willing to think differently and not allow their fear of what others may think about their ideas cause them to not take action. So don't be afraid of that. And for some, I will say, there could be a real phobia that some people have. And in those instances, there may be cases where you need a little more help. You may need some intervention from a professional that can give you additional tools to help you deal with those phobias. So I don't want to pretend that when you encounter something, these tips that I'm telling you are going to be a fix-all for everyone. These are some tools that you can use that can help in most situations, but there are cases where you might need a little more, and that's okay as well, because none of us are perfect. God wouldn't have made doctors if he didn't intend for them to be available to help people in certain situations where they needed additional assistance. So keep that in mind. So I just wanted to put that part in there. It could be beyond what we're talking about today. But once you understand the why, you now need to identify the risks. What's the worst case scenario? What could happen if my fear were to actually come to fruition and I actually experience what I'm afraid of? But are you afraid of forgetting what you wanted to say? Is that part of the fear? Are you afraid of the rejection? Are you worried that someone is not going to accept what it is that you had to say? Are you afraid of potentially losing your job? That's a real risk that you would want to avoid. So I could understand you being afraid to speak up or say something if there's the risk of you losing your job. Is there the risk to a relationship that you have? Or are you afraid of just simply not knowing the answer because someone is going to ask you a question at the end of your presentation? So all of those are valid reasons, and there are a number of other reasons that you may have that could make you afraid when you're in certain situations, but you need to understand what that is and identify what the risks are. Because when you understand and identify the risks, you're now able to come up with a plan. If your risk that you identify is the fact that you may forget what to say, how do you overcome that? What are you going to do to try to make sure or that you minimize the possibility of forgetting what you're going to say? You're going to prepare. You're going to come up with a plan. You're going to take the time to study. You're going to take the time to rehearse. You're going to take the time to research and do all of these things that are going to be necessary to help you avoid the risk that you know is potentially there that's making you afraid of the moment. So as you analyze it and you come up with a plan so that it won't happen. So if it does happen, you're going to know what to do in that moment. And when we know what we're going to do when something goes wrong, it gives us a lot more comfort, and we're less likely to be fearful of the moment, and we're willing to move forward because we have a plan. Every good plan has a contingency. You always have to be prepared for the fact that something that you planned for may not go as you planned it. And you need to think about that. At least one or two ways that can give you an alternative to resolve a situation that may come up. And that's what gets us in trouble sometimes, is when we haven't thought about what could potentially go wrong. And that isn't you being negative, that's you being prepared. It's being prepared. So for me, I prepare for the worst, and I prepare for the worst, but I hope for the best. I prepare for the worst and I hope for the best. So once I've identified what my risks are, I decide now, am I comfortable with the potential outcome of a worst case scenario? And if I can be comfortable with the fact that someone may reject what I have to say, I don't mind moving forward anyway. I'm not afraid of them rejecting my thoughts and my comments. I'm not afraid of losing my job because I've already understood that, you know what, I've got enough savings that I can wait and find another job. Or I have a business that I've been building that would allow me to still be able to maintain and take care of my family if I were to lose my job as the worst case scenario. So that's going to help you get to a place where you're able to manage that fear because you have acknowledged it. You understand why you feel that fear, which is important to understand where it's coming from, so that you can then begin to identify the risks that if your fear actually comes to reality, what are you going to do as you analyze it and plan for that to happen? Not that you want it to happen, not that you expect it to happen, but just in case you have prepared yourself. And as I mentioned a moment ago, in that preparation, you're studying, you're practicing, you're rehearsing, you're getting feedback, and you're putting yourselves in different situations so that you become more comfortable that when it's game time, you don't have to feel afraid. And at that point, now it's time to execute. You've got to just do it. You've got to be comfortable enough to move forward and just do it. And it's taking courage. And I love the example that has come to mind of the firefighters. With firefighters, they know it's dangerous running into a burning building, but yet they do it anyway because they know that they have an obligation and a responsibility to take care of the lives of those that they've committed themselves to help protect. And for us, if you're speaking, if you're communicating, there's a level of responsibility that sometimes something you need to say needs to be said because the words you speak could potentially save someone's life. So I do not want you to be so afraid of saying what's on your mind, what's on your heart, because you're more concerned about someone's reaction than you are concerned about the potential outcome or the potential consequences of your lack of action. And I learned that valuable lesson years ago. So for me, I'm more afraid of not doing what I'm supposed to do because I don't know how it could potentially harm someone's life by me not speaking up when the time comes. So I just want you all to keep those few things in mind. Managing your fear, you have to acknowledge it. You need to understand why you're feeling that fear. You need to identify the risks and the worst case scenario. And from there, figure out what you can do to minimize those risks so that if it does happen, you can then feel prepared to still deal with it and not be afraid to make the decision to take the action. And then you prepare yourself and just get ready for it. Practice, practice, practice. That's something that we always talk about in this space. That's what this space is about, is practice, practice, practice. Every time you get on the mic, you're practicing your ability to communicate. And especially for our non-native English speakers, this is a great place for you as well. And hopefully we'll get to hear some non-native English speakers as well, because that's an extra level of discomfort that someone is feeling when you are already nervous speaking in front of a few people, but then yet you're trying to figure out how to say what you need to say the right way in a different language. That's a whole nother level of discomfort. But I admire that so much about everyone that does that. And I'm so appreciative of the effort that you put into doing that. So I want everyone to just take that to heart, keep all of that in mind, and let's see what some other thoughts are about this, some other ideas that other people may have about managing their fear. What do you do to manage your fear? Let's talk about that.
All right. How to overcome the fear? Like you said, Satim, you were talking about there's no one that doesn't have a fear. Most of the public speakers we have today, at some point, up to now, most of them still have stage fright, which is the fear in them. To build this kind of confidence and how to overcome fear while speaking, you have to be, first of all, confident in yourself. I think that's very paramount. You have to be confident in yourself while speaking. Just like me, as a case study, I'm actually an introvert, and I find it difficult to speak in a crowd. Until then, when I decided to run for a position in my high school, and I was told to come out in a class of over 500 students to declare my interest and present my manifesto. That was my first ever speaking engagement I had, and I had opponents. Fortunately, I wasn't the first speaker, and I wasn't prepared for the manifesto. I had my opponents speak. About 3 of them, they spoke first before me, and I had to grab some points from what they spoke and improve it. Of course, I'm a smart guy, as my name implies. I had to, grab some points from what they spoke and how to improve it from mine. And after much is said and done, after the speaking, they were like, "Wow, that was a very nice manifesto. Where did I get that from?" My opponents came to me and said, "I just outsmarted all of them," and that was just it. So how to speak confidently, you have to bear in mind, take away anything about low self-esteem. At times when someone wants to speak, be like, what am I going to speak? I don't have anything to speak. Prepare yourself. And like someone said earlier on, you have to speak from your mind, speak from your heart. Before you speak, it has to come from within before it comes out from your mouth. Because once you think about what you have to say and speak it out, it's going to be garnished. If you don't have anything to say and just open your mouth and say anything anyhow, that means you're not a good speaker. And moreover, while speaking also, I think that's what works for me. You don't have to look at the audience in their face. You have to look at them. Don't just look at them on their face. Look over them. That's one of the things. That's how I used to overcome my fear. Climbing the stage for the first time, it kind of fear will grip you. But for you to overcome it within a couple of seconds or minutes, you have to buckle up and speak what you have to speak. I think that's just it, basically. Just be confident in yourself. The confidence there is the number one thing. You should remove everything about low self-esteem. I think that's basically how to overcome the fear while speaking. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Ethan. Are you still in high school, or did you just recently graduate?
Yeah, I'm in my final year.
Okay.
I'm still in high school.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So you know what? Hand claps, hand claps, hand claps, hand claps. I love it when young people come in and you get to see the demonstration of confidence that they have to step on the mic in spaces like this or any other spaces, and to just have themselves put together like that. And the mindset, I'll say it that way, the mindset that they have is always impressive to me, the young people that come into this space. So definitely believing in yourself, you have to do that. And I love the fact that you took the time and had the comfort level and belief in yourself to be able to think on your feet and make adjustments on the fly. So as you were listening to other people speak, you were taking notes and you adjusted what you were going to say in real time as you were listening. So kudos to you. That's an awesome skill to have, to be able to do that. And everyone, all of the adults in the space, that's something that we should be able to do, to be able to have a plan, but still be comfortable enough with what it is that we're doing, what we've prepared for, that if you need to make an adjustment on the fly, you're able to do that, because it may be required sometimes. So kudos to you, Ethan. Great job on that. Congratulations. Doctor.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Dr. Allison.
All right. Thank you very much, Smart. I really love it. Was pretty much insightful what you said. Thank you, Tim, for this opportunity. In fact, when I saw the space, I was really excited. Thank you, Michael, for coming. Jackie, I see you. Shout out to you guys. One time on Twitter, I made a tweet, and it was about the most challenging emotions, and it was like a voting poll, and fear got the most votes. And I love this space because it's a time for us to come together to pay attention to that part. One thing I have noticed is we tend to run or shy away from our fears, or the word fear, or the emotion fear, because people perceive it to be weakness. They prefer to say, "Oh, I'm not familiar with this," instead of saying, "Oh, I'm scared," or "I'm afraid of approaching this thing." It's the mixing of words. So when I saw this space, it was really amazing. I made a tweet. I was like, I hope I get to talk for long, because it's a lot. We need to come to that point where we come to terms with this emotion. It is a very natural emotion. It's very natural. Now, I heard Tim said something about managing this emotion. It's not even about overcoming them, okay? Because it seems like a very difficult task to do, overcome. When we say overcome the fear in our mind, it's more like a very tedious task to do. But when we say manage, that's why I love what Tim said later on, managing these things. Okay, there's what we call competence confidence loop in psychology. It's pretty much simple. The more you understand something, the more confident you are in that thing. I'm going to go back a little bit. For you to understand something, you need to have knowledge of that thing. It needs to be knowable to you. And for you to know something, you need to pay attention to it. You need to have interest in it. That's bringing us back to not running away or shying away from that emotion, fear. We battle with it. We have mismanaged emotion. That is where, most of the issues come. Oh, I cannot understand why I'm feeling this way. It's because we are not managing these things properly. And you can't manage these things if you don't know them. Okay? And in knowing them, you need to start paying attention to it. You need to start understanding, asking yourself questions. Why am I scared? Why am I feeling this type of way? What is happening? Why is it this? Maybe you're not familiar with it. Cool, but why is that the case? Okay, that's why I am really excited about Aisha. I came here to learn and also, see how I can throw more lights into this thing. This is one part, in fact, from the votes I had on Twitter, it's one part of our emotions that is holding us ransom. We tend to give it other words like I'm not familiar with it, it's new to me, instead of saying I'm afraid of approaching this. And that is something we need to pay, more attention to. Once you understand your fear, that is the first point in managing or overcoming it. If you want to use the word overcome, it's allowed. That is the first step to managing or overcoming it. You need to understand it. And in understanding that, you need to have knowledge. And that's taking us back to, facing these things. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a weak person if you admit to the fact that something scares you, or you are afraid of approaching something, or there is a fear of whatsoever, it is. So I'm just going to drop here. I have other things to say, but I want to make sure that every other person, participates in this conversation. I'm really excited. to be here, and I hope to learn and also throw more lights on this. Thank you very much, team.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Dr. Allison. And everyone, if you make a point and you have more you want to say, you always have the opportunity to be able to come back and share more. So don't feel like if you don't say it all right away that it's over. You'll get to speak again. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. So don't feel like you have to squeeze a gallon worth of water into a 12-ounce bottle. That isn't the case. So we have Jim and then Jackie.
Yeah, it's a lot of your comments, Tim, which were excellent, by the way, focused on fear of speaking. That's something that I've never felt, fortunately. I feel joy. So if you feel joy, there's nothing that's going to even be a hesitation for you. You look forward to the opportunity. So for somebody that fears, I would suggest to them they think about if you and I were talking outside a coffee shop or outside a church or just sitting across the table from each other at lunch, there's no fear in those discussions. I'm looking you in the eye, you're looking at me in the eye, I'm watching all the body language, and we're communicating. God, how can there be anything more joyous in life than two people communicating? Especially if it's a dialogue, a give and take, because whenever I'm speaking, I'm not learning. So I suggest to people who start public speaking for the first time, and like somebody else said earlier, I'd rather speak in front of a crowd of 50,000 people than 2 or 3. If you get into speaking and you start looking at the audience right in their eye as individuals, and you talk to those people not only in the front row, but 6 rows back or left quarter of the stage, it becomes a really joyful experience.
Yes, it does. So I want to make sure you muted intentionally, Jim.
Yeah, I did. I was done.
Okay.
I don't want to abuse your courtesy.
Absolutely. So thank you for a demonstration of conciseness there. We appreciate that. And what I will say is, to your point about the speaking, so yes, it does capture speaking, but also just general communication with people and interaction. So not even necessarily with the crowd. Fear will show its head in a number of ways. If someone has had an experience in their early years where they were always told to be quiet, or they were often overlooked when they shared their opinions about something and people laughed at them all the time, then even in a one-on-one conversation at the cafe, and it's someone that they want to have a better relationship with, they can be fearful of the same rejection that they experienced earlier in life because they never reconciled those feelings that they had to figure out and understand, as Ethan said, to believe in themselves enough that they don't have to worry about other people's opinions. So there are several layers of how that fear will show up and why people will feel it, and why just in communication in general, whether it's public speaking or not, I'm sure, I am more than sure that there's at least 5 people in this space right now that have something in their heart that they need to tell a family member, but they're afraid to say it because of culture, or because of past experience, or because they're afraid that they're going to hurt someone's feeling, and they're more concerned about hurting someone else's feeling than they are about finding peace within themselves. So I want everyone to think about it from a bigger perspective and not just being on the stage when you're speaking to a group of people. So I hope that adds a little more context to what this is about. So we'll go to Jackie, then Mary Beth, and then Emily.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Tim, Mary, Emily, the co-host, all my friends here. Thank you for the time. Yes, I was about to say something, and then you talk about in a bigger picture, and kind of I lost it there. I was like, oh, I got something prepared to talk, and now so this is the resetting that you were talking about. So now I'm kind of, confused. Not confused, but how to change whatever I wanted to say to cover like a bigger picture. But anyways, I will say that how to overcome the fear in my case, and I'm gonna be concentrating on the public speaking and presenting to yourself to a big crowd and to others. And the first thing that I do is I always practice, and the more I practice, it's like a scale. Your confidence rises up, and the fear goes down. So the more confident, the less fear. Another thing that I do is I breathe in and breathe out, and I do this to ground myself, to bring myself to the present time, because I don't know you guys, but when I start feeling fear, my fingers start getting numb, and my mind start getting dizzy a little bit. So when I do the breathing, I bring myself to the present, to now. I feel every part of my body, because that way you are connected to yourself, and then you can connect to others. Another thing that I recommend doing is doing a lot of exercise or a little bit of some routine before you do this type of speaking or in front of a lot of people. Why? Because you can calm yourself down. You can let go a lot of energy out of your body, and that helps a lot with communication. And another thing, and the last one, and this is only my thing, okay? If I have to go, because I have to go to I used to be an actress, so I have to go and perform in front of a lot of people all the time. So in my case, as a last resource only, guys, I will use to drink a glass of wine, and that will relax me, and then I can be more present and be more fearless. But that is only my particular thing that I used to do. I know that in acting, a lot of people do that. They do the shots of a shot of whiskey, a shot of tequila, and then they feel like they can be more relaxed in front of the crowd and lose that initial fear. And that's all I wanted to say, Tim. Thank you for letting me speak.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And again, just another demonstration there, the reset. And I love that you, even though I gave additional perspective, that people don't have to limit it to just public speaking, to just take the time and regather yourself the way that you did. And I'm loving the pace that I'm hearing with everyone today. Everyone is being very intentional with the things that they're saying. Anyone else noticing that? I'm the only one? Okay. Okay. I was just making sure. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Awesome. So great job. I am loving this. So Mary Beth.
Hey there. Thank you so much, Tim. Mary Beth here. So it was interesting how Dr. Allison brought up the admission of fear. And my head kept thinking on that and turning, because I was like, that's a wonderful rooting point to start at, right? Like, why is it that I'm scared? And I bring this up also toward what Jim was mentioning earlier, and then how Jackie had a technique of, hey, perhaps this is a method you could use if it is an option for you, a last resort, perhaps take a sip of this. I thought about this. So like, I always share with people, I'm not really afraid to speak to people at a dinner table or on a stage to a couple hundred people. But there is a difference. If like one of the ways I explain it to people is like, I can get up and speak in front of a couple hundred people or 20 strangers in a group, like in an office setting. But sometimes the dinner table is a different story with family members, right? And then I started thinking about what Dr. Allison was saying is like, what is that fear? Or like, and I think it's because at the end of the day, if we do have some kind of shyness or a fear of speaking in whatever setting, big or small, sometimes we could be asking ourselves in our head, like some of those voices, like, how are they going to react? What if they make fun of me? Or what if they don't think I'm funny? Or what if I say something wrong? And those ideas start going through our head. And as like what you were saying, Tim, whether you were told to be, to stay more quiet when you were younger, or if you were in more of a coached environment with parents, they're like, well, next time do this, and next time stand up more straight, or next time articulate this word better. Sometimes we just don't want to deal with that, like maybe we just don't want to hear it at the time. So I just wanted to kind of perhaps everyone who's interested in this topic is like, consider like why we even have those fears, because it's almost like they're kind of like ideas that we're creating in our head, and they're not necessarily true, if that makes sense. So those ideas in our head can just really stop us from doing little things like having simple conversations at a table, or getting on stage to do something, or speaking up in an office meeting. So like that, the root of that fear or having these ideations in our head can have a major impact of what we do or don't do, or speak, or if we don't speak. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I dare to say that more people are probably more afraid to have some of those conversations that you described, Mary Beth, than they are of speaking to a crowd of strangers. There's just a different dynamic when it comes to family, or people that people that you have to see again, that you share emotions with, that you spend time with. It's a different dynamic when those people are going to be there tomorrow after you've said what you said. So it's a different dynamic. And like,
Ooh,
go
you
ahead.
just said it right there. Are we going to see them again? Like, have you ever gotten in an environment where someone says to you, oh, don't worry about it, you're never going to see them again? But what if you do by chance? Or what if it's family or a coworker? Like if that instance where I said, if I speak on a stage in front of 200 people, if you put one family member in there, it's like a completely different game for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It has a tremendous impact. And that's why understanding the why is so important. When you can understand why, then you can drill down and figure out how to deal with that, how to approach it, how to manage it. What are the potential risks of doing that? It goes a long way. But Emily, I see your hand, and then we'll go to, well, it was Rob, but then we'll go to Coach after you, Emily.
Yes, I'll be brief. So many things came to my mind with what Maribeth just said, what you said, Tim, especially about like being overlooked. If we've had experiences of being overlooked or laughed at, what are they going to say, and so on. I've experienced it plenty enough, because oftentimes those people know us, and they can more so affect how we think, how we perceive ourselves, because we have like a connection, a bond by family or so on. And one thing that has been effective for me is the repetition of seeing myself in a positive light, so that I could accept the truth about myself. Meaning that when Maribeth said, sometimes it's ideas that we have in our heads, but we accept them as truth because nothing in our experience has told us otherwise. A room like this one, I'm gonna chill this room and invite everybody that's thinking of maybe speaking, like, be patient, find moments where you have felt free to speak, find rooms and people that will affirm you and validate you, and just repeat it so often that this new truth overpowers the old lies. It takes time, and it needs to be repeated consistently, as long as this new truth that you can speak in and are valuable and have something to say crystallizes in your mind and becomes so strong that you're convicted of it as being truth, and anything else that presents itself will be rejected by your brain. But you need to train your mind and repeat many experiences where what you say is validated and experienced, and where you feel that you are okay, so that you begin to believe that you are okay. There's so many factors at play here. I'm just giving my experience. Hope it's valuable, and I'm going to land the plane here. Thank you so much.
Mm. Thank you for sharing the experience, Emily. And as you were speaking, what came to mind to it almost summarizes what you were saying in my head and the visual. Understanding that when we have a mindset and perspective and we choose to nurture the doubt that we have, it's like walking a path through a field of grass, a field of tall grass. As a child, you may walk this field every day for a month. And the more you walk the path, the wider it becomes. It becomes a clearer path, and it becomes easier for you to walk through because you continue to trample on this grass and you create this path that's easy to follow, for you to follow and anyone else to follow. But think about your mind and the way your brain works. As we do certain things, as we have certain behaviors and certain mindsets, our brain creates these pathways. And the more you focus on the negative thoughts, the more you focus on the doubt, you create a bigger and bigger path, just like in the grass field. But if you begin to take a different route, what happens is you begin to create a new path that becomes easy to follow. And the other path that you stop using, the grass begins to grow again and cover that path, so you no longer see it anymore. So think about that. Whatever you choose to nurture is what you're going to experience the most of. So nurture the positive aspect of what you have the ability to do, believing in yourself and telling yourself that you can versus telling yourself that you can't. And the more you tell yourself that you can, the more you will begin to believe it, the more you will begin to see it, and you're going to recognize the abilities that you actually do have when you begin to walk in that and begin to do it. So just tell yourself, I have to create a new path. If any of you right now in this space is constantly feeding yourself with the self-doubt, tell yourself, I've got to create a new path in the field. And the field is your mind. I have to create a new path in the field. And I hope you're saying this with me. I have to create a new path in the field. And that's going to change things for you when you begin to do that. It may not happen right away, but the more you do it, the easier it will become, and it will become a part of who you are. And you will begin to realize the newfound perspective on life in general. Just everything begins to open up, and it's easier to go from point A to point B no matter what you're doing, because you created a new path towards success and confidence versus the path to doubt and failure. Great point, Emily. Thank you for that. So we have now, it is Coach. And what I want to do before you go, Coach. So I want people to know, don't get offended if we rotate someone. You can always come back. We just want to give a few other speakers an opportunity. So we'll do that. We'll take care of that part. And you can always come back up if we rotate you to bring one of the other speakers up that's been waiting. So we now have Truths. Truths, welcome again.
Hey, Tim. Okay. I wanted to add this aspect of fear. So first, I want to confess that I despise this kind of fear. I hate this kind of fear. So I taught children for a while, all the way from 0 to 10, okay? And what you notice with children is there is learned behavior that comes to the classroom with them, and it's their parents who have instilled this fear in them. And when you see it among, a group of children, there are children that are, fearless to kick the ball, the soccer ball, for example, or to just try anything. And there are those who are scared of new things. And I wanted to bring that up because it is a learned behavior. So I want us to wash off any type of instilling unfounded fear or irrational fear that we implement in our children. Fear of water, for example, or quote unquote, I never heard fear of heights before I came to the US, but you hear people, whether it's fear of heights, fear of spiders, or fear of water or the ocean, these are learned behaviors, because you'll be so shocked to find out, for those who were born in a different nation, where these things are not talked about, when we come over to the US, it all of a sudden becomes something that's talked about. So basically, my point is, especially if you have children or if you are in a power to or in position to influence children, I want to somehow, or even adults, I want us to break the boundaries that were set irrationally and unfoundedly to kind of break those, because that's what will help us. My last experience I want to share was I was in the U.S. Army, so we had to go and basically zip line across this forest. Okay, and that was natural fear, I think. But anyway, I couldn't go. So 5 people before me, they went, and then they pushed me. So I went, and then, like, to this day, I don't remember how it was instilled in me, but there are things that they instilled that I became fearless, or even to make mistakes. I became fearless in things that they implemented in me without even my knowledge. So I wanted to share those because those are what helped me today. Like, I can go face anything when it comes to those kind of things, when it comes to just stepping into a room where I don't know anyone in life, right? In real life, I step in and I could interact with anyone, whether they're the general or they're the boss or the CEO. Because at the end of the day, somehow, some way, after I have come out of the Army, there were things that implemented in me. So we have to also put ourselves in places where, you know, they will implement in us without us knowing how to be fearless or how to just stand in ourselves, because we are good enough. We're all good enough. We are more than good enough, actually, all of us. We were created so we can fulfill certain positions and places. And, these are the things that were implemented in me without my knowledge. And so I wanted to share these things. Sorry if I took a little while.
Oh, great point. And thank you again for your service. And there those learned behaviors that people have. Many of them are learned behaviors. And I often think about children when you have kids with parents that it's constantly for the first several years of their life, stop, no, don't, stop, no, don't. And that's all they hear. So does that make them afraid to explore the world, to learn, to take chances and risks? How much does it affect their confidence in themselves when they are always told that they can't do something? So I would love to see a research study about that. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll get a grant and help facilitate that. But I'm just really curious about that. But I think also the unknown is part of that. When something is unfamiliar to us, fear, again, it has levels. So just because it's called fear doesn't mean that you just turn and run from it. Fear is healthy as well at its core for what it is and what it represents, because it makes us aware of what's going on, and it makes us take a moment to pause to think that, hey, what do I need to be prepared for something here? How should I proceed in this particular moment? It's a matter of, do we manage it early on, or do we let it get out of control? And what we don't want to do is let the fear get out of control where we become paralyzed and we don't have the ability to act when we need to. And that's what we have to avoid, is letting it get out of control. But understand that it's a very important emotion for us because it makes us aware. Just like pain, we need pain. Pain lets us know that something is wrong. So we get to check on it. And the worse the pain is, the bigger the problem is that we're dealing with. So pain and fear are both important emotions, but we don't allow them to take over our lives. So great point, Truths. And I love that. And if you think about a child that was just thrown in the pool and it becomes traumatic for them, very difficult to overcome, you may never get them to swim, because the only thing they can remember is that moment when they were under the water and they didn't know how to get back to the top so they could breathe again. And that's that's an experience that they had, that someone taught them that water was a bad place to be. So we have to be careful how we deal with people, the situations that we put people in, how we make people feel, because the words we say, the way we say them, could become an experience that develops into a learned behavior or develops a fear response in someone for later on in their life. So we have to really be careful. And that's another reason why being a confident and effective communicator is so important. It isn't just about what we can get out of the situation. It's how we're able to also help benefit and add value to other people, to protect them, to comfort them, to build them up, or whatever it is that we can do to add value to people. Being confident and effective communicators is so important in so many different aspects of our lives. And as I mentioned in the beginning, when I was speaking to, I forgot who it was earlier in the space he was in, and I used making money as part of the benefit and value of learning to communicate effectively. And he said it was more than money for him, but that's all part of it. The impact of being confident and effective communicators, it can affect so much of your life and so many other people's lives as well. And we have to be aware of that. We have 3 hands that are up. And then after these 3 hands, we're going to go into the challenges, because we'll be closing at 1:30 today. And I just want to make sure we have an opportunity to do some of the challenges. And I want to give these few people that have their hands up already an opportunity to speak. So we have Tina, and then Steak, and then Bobby.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to be quick because I know you want to go to challenges. This is my experience that I'd like to share. Regardless of the subject, when I want to speak, before I start, I always pause and think about what I want to say. And then I put it through a filter. If this is positive, it is going to add something, information, and I'm giving back something to someone. Is it somebody's question? Because most of the time, people have the question, but don't have the courage to ask. Maybe you're helping someone to answer that question. And fear is just a subsign. It's just your emotions telling you, but it's not the fact. And once we get to the bottom of that fear, and then we can release it and get past beyond it. And the other thing is, when I speak, I try to be authentic, speak from my heart, from my mind, what I know and what I can add to the subject. And after that, I really do not care what people think, how they judge me, because it really isn't my business. And everybody is entitled to it. And so what if I mess up? Who doesn't? So once the fear is out of the picture, you can put it out there and reach out. And that will definitely help someone. Imagine if we all just didn't say what is on our mind. Nobody would ever know. So that mindfulness sets the stage for a effective communication. So, and then after that, then you get feedback from people what you've done, and most of the time you'll be so amazed how wonderful people are, how they really respond to you. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tina, for sharing that. Take the chance. And I love that she said that other people's opinions about you is not your business. It's theirs. It doesn't matter what they think. As long as you have represented yourself in a manner that you can be proud of, it doesn't matter what they think. People will always have opinions about you. They will always have something to say. So give them something good to talk about. And when they do choose to say something bad or negative, then it reflects poorly on them, because your character has already demonstrated that you're an upstanding person, and people will see that. So great points, Tina. Thank you for sharing that. Steak, welcome to the space. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm very well. I'd like to take this opportunity to address everyone in this space by thanking the speakers for your courage, determination, and creativity to deal with and overcome your fear. and to thank the listeners for offering a platform and hopefully enriching your knowledge. And for a few, and maybe all of you, maybe one day you'll be able to bless me with your voice as well. I hope you all don't have a good but a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Steak. We really appreciate that. So what we will do is we now have Bobby. Well, you know what? Before we go to Bobby, I want to acknowledge what Steak just did. So for those of you that are afraid to speak in a space, I want you to think about what Steak just did and always remember that. You don't have to have something profound to say. You don't have to have something that's going to be earth-shattering. Even though I say it doesn't have to be something profound, what Steak just said in its own right was profound, because he just simply came to express appreciation and show graciousness to everyone in the space. And sometimes it's as simple as that. That's all you have to say. To just say hello to everyone. To say, hi, I am Johnny Hamilton, and I'm from England. I just wanted to come say hello to everyone and introduce myself. That's taking an opportunity that presents itself to you. So it doesn't have to take a lot. In this space, we just want you to make progress. We want you to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I'm sure everyone in here at some point in time will have to go do an interview, either to get a job or interview to hire someone, interview someone that you may want to be your potential client. So you have to get to a point where you're comfortable with those conversations and that you are not afraid to go and say what needs to be said, even when it's uncomfortable and awkward. So we don't want you to be afraid, and we want you to get to a point that no matter who's around, no matter how many people are around, you're comfortable because you feel prepared enough to be able to speak up and say what's on your mind. So thank you for that example, Steak, for allowing everyone to see that. That's what I like to call a teachable moment. Just simple, something short and sweet. It doesn't take much. So Truths, let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and do the challenge. And then I see Dave's hand, and Dave, what we'll do is we're going to let you do a challenge, Dave. And I know that may not be what you raised your hand for, but in the space, we get comfortable being uncomfortable. And we're going to give you a challenge today, and we're going to let you work on that with us. But Truths, we'll begin with you. Let me ask you this. Do you prefer the random topic or a question?
I still would prefer the random topic.
The random topic. Okay. Random topic it is.
Give it to me, please.
Okay. And just so everyone knows, for those of you that may not have experienced the challenges that we do in the space, what the challenges are designed for or are intended to do is to help develop your ability to think on your feet. It allows you to practice the 4 P's of speaking that we focus on: is your pitch, your pace, your power, and your pauses as you are responding to something that you have no clue what it's going to be. So Truths has decided that she wants to do a random topic. So in a moment, I'm going to give her a single topic, and she'll have 60 seconds to give a response and explain. Either she can make up a story. If I said Billy Goat, she could make up a story about the little Billy Goat that grew up to be a horse if she wanted to. Or she could say how Billy Goats love to eat grass and they climb on the fence all the time. So she gets to choose how she wants to respond. But at the end of the day, it's about her just getting comfortable being uncomfortable, learning how to think on her feet, and then learning how to bring her thoughts together in a cohesive manner that she's able to make sense and try to add some value on some level with what she's saying. All right. So I just wanted to give everyone that little heads up. And at 45 seconds, you'll hear this bell. And that's just a reminder that you have 15 seconds left. So don't panic when you hear the bell. That just simply means you have 15 seconds left, and that's a good time to get ready to wrap it up. All right? So the time will begin once you begin your response. So the random topic is tomatoes.
Tomatoes. One of my favorite fruits or vegetables. I just started planting tomato plants, and I have been successful at it. it is a powerful plant that has been actually exciting because it is growing for me. And then I learned about propagating it. So also those 5 of them that I have propagated are also growing. I am excited. I haven't, harvested any of them, but tomatoes is one of those favorite cooking vegetables / fruit. I'm still trying to study them, that I use all the time. When you cook the tomato and you cook it more than usual, it's tastier. The spices, the acidity of it has some level of health for us. A lot of vitamin C in there. So we have incorporated a lot of tomato into our cookings, and I enjoy it. And it's really good for you. So I also encourage you to incorporate different tomatoes into your everyday cooking.
All right. Thank you very much. So it was about 1:15. Tomatoes. So let me ask you, let's start with you, Truths. How do you feel about your response? How did that go for you?
My response was good. I felt a lot more confident and comfortable starting it. The content is not as good or as deep as I would have wanted it to be. Yet I was trying to focus on my pace and my conciseness. But when I'm done, now that you're asking me, I feel like the idea of my speaking is not necessarily to give you guys the best knowledge about it, but more so I was practicing about my pace, my conciseness, and maybe my, forceful staying on a topic situation, because usually I tend to be more interested in educating others. This has been my field, is health education. So that personality I try to remove in this kind of space now and focus on how well am I speaking, how concise or precise, my pause, my power. Maybe I can focus more on the power next time. So yeah, this is my feeling now that I'm done. I don't feel as insecure as in the past when I did these challenges, Tim. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. I love that self-assessment that you did. And something that I'll mention to everyone, as you practice, whether it's your speaking or anything else, don't try to change the world all at once. You notice that Truth picked a couple of things that she wanted to work on during the challenge. She wanted to work on her pace and her conciseness primarily, and then also trying to stay on topic and not try to save the world with tomato soup. So find 1 or 2 things as you go along and just work on those at one particular time, because if you do too much too fast, it's overwhelming, and you begin to either get frustrated or you begin to feel as though it's too much to handle and that you aren't able to see the progress that you want to make because you're trying to do too much. So just pick 1 or 2 things at a time and you'll begin to see the progress that you're looking for. So great job, Truths. So I see Joaquin, you had your hand up. You want to give some feedback for Truths?
Hey, Tim. Yes. Truths, you know that you're one of my favorite speakers. I love to hear excuse me. I love to hear what you have to say every time on this topic. I think that you definitely, I love the way that you jumped into it. I think that was a very strong start. I heard you kind of stumble a little bit, but once you figured out what you were going to talk about, of growing the tomatoes, that I think was the strongest part of your response. And I used to garden as well, and I love growing tomatoes. They grow quickly, especially the really big ones. So I thought that part was very strong. Just a little bit of feedback where you began to kind of lose me was, when you started talking about after the bell, maybe the last 15, 20 seconds, when you started saying that everyone should cook with tomatoes. That part wasn't as personal. I think that it felt a little detached. And your strongest part was definitely when you were talking about how you grew tomatoes, and I wanted to hear more about that part. But definitely, I think your pacing was great. The way you started with very excited was my favorite part as well. So just wanted to give you that little bit of feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. Absolutely. I will remember not to start a whole different thing at the end. I love how you gave me that feedback because, yes, just stay on topic, finish it up, and that specific topic stay centralized. I like that. So I appreciate you. I do not want to start a whole different message at the end of my topic. So thank you so much for that, Joaquin.
Absolutely. And let me ask you this. So did the bell rattle you a little bit? And you were probably at a point where, because I actually thought you were wrapping up around that point. Did the bell kind of rattle you a little bit and make you feel like you had to turn 15 seconds into a lot more than it was?
More so because I've become better at not being rattled by the bell.
Okay.
But I just wanted to leave one more message with it, and I shouldn't have.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Good point. So it's okay to end, everyone. Just so you know, if you have a point, if you have 60 seconds, it doesn't mean you have to use 60 seconds. But if you need 60 seconds, give as much value that you can within that 60 seconds, but it doesn't have to be the entire 60 seconds. So great observation, Joaquin. Emily, did you want to give some feedback?
I did. Truth. Just like Joaquin, I really enjoyed how you started, right? It was a good way to kind of gather your thought. You just stated tomato. What is it? It's a fruit and it's a vegetable. Regardless, I liked it. And then you went and you talked about your garden. So I thought your start was funny, and the garden. I was also interested for you to tell me how you grow your tomatoes. That was interesting because you were really vivid with it. Like, I tried to propagate them, and I don't know if you talked about the soil and everything. That's intriguing, and I felt as if you wanted to add something that's more informative at the end. So maybe that's why you went on with the last part. I do that sometimes. I'm like, ooh, I have to be like super profound or insightful. As Tim said, like I want to save the world with my tomato soup type thing. I do that. So I relate, right? To want to make an impact. But really it comes back to what we said, like be confident, because it's actually, let me not be so light about it. I thoroughly enjoyed the growing of your garden, and that was enough, right? I think we have to believe that what we say, even if we go a lightweight, it is enough, and it's going to be entertaining, and people are going to learn, and it's going to be personal, as Joaquin said, right? I like that part, so that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Emily.
Absolutely. Great observation, Emily. Michael, you want to give some feedback for Truths?
Yeah, the thing I noticed most was how open she was to feedback. And many people, when you do these challenges, don't want really any feedback. They're not as open, especially in my work life. I'm just going to say my work life because I won't drag your show in it, Tim. But a lot of times people just want you to agree with them. I really feel with her that she has a hunger to get better, to do the work it takes to have the mastery. So I admire that. So keep going. And I've noticed significant changes in the pace and the confidence of her speaking in the short time that I've known her. That's it.
And sometimes that's enough. Oh, go ahead, Truth. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just want to thank Michael because I know that when I first heard him, he was criticizing me, and I did feel, kind of bad, but I liked it because, I noticed myself that in being criticized or being like the way Joaquin did, he's like, dude, how'd you start? You started a whole new topic at the end. I do like to laugh at myself and my, shortfalls. So with Michael, when he did that, I didn't even know him. I appreciated it. So he did push me more to ask even for more criticism, because in criticism, we learn how to laugh at ourselves more, which also changes something in our brain to become better. Mm-hmm. So I think, honest and maybe harsh, constructive criticism is what we need, especially in this kind of situation. Remember, I was like all over the place before, and I am that person who wants to give too much at one time. And so I do appreciate the shaping you guys are doing, for me and for my ways of communicating. So yes, Michael, bring it on.
Awesome. And it makes such a big difference. And that mindset, that's how we get better. We have to want the feedback. We need the feedback because other people will see the things that we can't see ourselves. When you are the person that's driving the car, you can't see the dirt on the outside. It's the people that watch you drive by. So you have to get that feedback to understand where your opportunities are to improve and be willing to accept that and embrace it. And something that also happens with these challenges is the people that are giving feedback are also practicing. Giving feedback isn't something that everyone knows how to do or that everyone is comfortable doing. So this is practice with your communication, understanding how to share information with someone. It means you have to actually listen to understand and not just simply listen to respond. So there's learning going on from both sides of these challenges that we do, and people may not realize that. So thank you all for doing that and listening and participating in this. So Dave, are you ready to do the challenge? Welcome to the space.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm not sure about being ready, but I'm happy to give it a go. I wasn't expecting having a challenge. It'll be fun.
Absolutely. See, I love it. I love it, Dave. You're comfortable being uncomfortable, and Dave's like, let's do it. All right. So would you rather have a question, Dave, or a random topic the way Truths did?
Let's go with a question. Why not mix it up a bit?
All right. So we'll give you a question. All right, Dave, your question is, what makes Dave a special person? And the time begins when you do.
Okay. I guess there's a variety of things that make me interesting and unique, I suppose. But to say special, I'm not sure. But I'm on the autism spectrum. I have a great difficulty speaking to people in general. So I found that speaking on spaces has kind of opened me up a bit as far as my speaking ability. I've tried to mostly stick to my technical competencies because I'm highly technically competent in blockchain systems and governance systems, that kind of thing. That's my paid work, and I try to stick to those topics as much as I can because it's my comfort zone. It really is. But coming up to a space like this and trying to speak in to people in a more conversational manner, it's tricky for me. It really is, and I appreciate the opportunity for doing it. So it's I guess I'm special because I'm trying. I suppose that's the best way I can put it.
Awesome. Right at 60 seconds, Dave. Right at 60 seconds. So let's drop some hand claps out there for Dave. So we are going to let you share your thoughts first, Dave. What's your self-assessment of that?
It's very strange, actually. Normally, I have a much stronger voice than during something so off the cuff. Normally, I have a lot more power to my voice. I feel like I sounded weak almost. Other than that, I'm not really sure how to assess myself on that.
Well, I'll say this, based on you feeling like your voice sounded weak. As we have been speaking about fear in the space and managing the fear, Not that you're necessarily afraid, but you are in an uncomfortable environment where your mind feels that, you know what do I need to be prepared for? What do I need to be aware of in this environment? And when you think about the tone of the room, everyone has been very intentional about their pace, about their pauses, and the dynamics of their approach in the way that they present themselves today. And you have simply blended in to what everyone else has been doing in the space. That's what you've done. You've immersed yourself into the environment that is going on right now. So I think your voice was, you presented yourself well from a vocal perspective. But I will wait and let some of the others share their feedback first. And I guess, Emily, we can start with you this time.
Thank you, Tim. I'll try to be concise. Dave, hi. I connected specifically with something you said at first. You said, I don't know if I'm special. You said I'm unique in many ways or something along that nature, but I don't know if I'm special. And I became drawn to listen because I wanted to know why. Like, why do you feel this way? And so you described many other things, and perhaps maybe the feedback, it's your first time in this space, so I don't know if you were mindful of time, so there were a lot of things that were connected together that it was hard for me to, how can I say, latch on, right? Because there were many things you said, but I wanted to let you know that because you started your minute this way, I became drawn to you. I wanted to know you and to know how you think. And yeah, maybe it's just a pace thing because your hook was really strong and I became super connected with what you had to say. So that's the feedback I have.
I really appreciate that, Emily. Really, I do. In fact, I actually came up to this. It's quite funny because I joined this space and I was listening to the quality of the conversation, and I actually left the space because I wanted to speak, but I was just unsure whether I would be able to add value, and that's one of my issues with public speaking and why I tend to stick to the technical topics is because I have a great fear of not being able to actually add value to a conversation. I had to force myself to come back into the space just to speak. And I genuinely appreciate that. Thanks.
I'm glad you did. And I hope you come back. Basically, I want to hear your thoughts. So it's just the formatting of presenting your thoughts, but how you present it at first, I want to know more about you now. So I hope that you come back.
I will, no doubt.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So we have, who was it, Joaquin or Michael next?
Michael, you could go ahead and I'll go after Michael.
Okay.
Thanks for that. I just took a couple notes. I loved the honesty at the beginning of it. There was almost a vulnerability that I felt, which made me connect with you. I loved the pace. I thought the pace was great. I really enjoyed the calm voice. I also noticed you had a bit of an accent. And I instantly thought, this would be a great guy to read a book, right? I would love to hear your voice more. And I love that you had the bravery to step into the unknown. And I think that's important for all of us to kind of celebrate that. Anytime that we can enter into something that we don't feel comfortable in and maybe, risk being foolish, these are the opportunities to really stretch and grow as a human being. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the feedback. And I couldn't agree more. I do have a lot of issues with jumping on in public and, like I say, speaking on off-the-cuff kind of subjects. But it's very valuable in being able to just overcome the stumbling blocks and just try and actually move forward with and improve.
And you are doing a fantastic job at that, Dave. So I want to say this part before we go to Joaquin is I'm super excited that you did come back to the space. And this is why we never know who's looking for an opportunity. And in the space, I don't worry about scanning profiles much, because you just don't know what's going on behind the scene. Even if a profile picture may look a little different, it may be unique and interesting. Some of them can be a little scary sometimes, but that still doesn't mean, it doesn't always indicate who the person is behind it. And I mentioned earlier to everyone to not be afraid or get caught up comparing yourselves, because it was sounding like a TEDx round robin throughout a lot of the day. And Dave is a great example as to why I said that, because when we become confident and effective with our communication, we have to be aware of those different dynamics that may be going on in people's heads. We can't just focus on the person right in front of us that's speaking. We have to be aware of everybody that's around and what some of the possibilities may be and what different people may be dealing with. And I wanted to really thank you, Dave, and commend you for coming back to do that. But Joaquin, we'll go to you, and then I think Truths was next after that.
Thanks, Tim. Dave, what in your initial interaction with Tim, I thought, man, there's something very interesting is the best word I can come up with, but intriguing even. Your voice is very intriguing. You've got a detached kind of coolness to coolness to your voice, where I was thinking, okay, I want to hear what this guy has to say. And then, when you mentioned that you were on the spectrum, that even more piqued my interest. And let me say, okay, I really need to hear what this person has to say, because I think that sometimes a coolness or a detachment could come off as possibly arrogant or holier than thou kind of thing. And I absolutely did not get that from you at all. As Michael was saying on the narrating a book, I mean, I think that you have a very unique and special voice and way of saying things. And I think that you could really lean into that. I mean, blockchain to me is interesting, and government that you were speaking about, that definitely is interesting. I'm sure once you get in your element, you really do come alive. But I also wouldn't discount the entire other half of life, art, creativity, music, because I think that you have a real natural gift and talent in that side. Just wanted to add that. Looking forward to hearing you speak in the future as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And yeah, as far as like the coming off as aloof and that kind of feel, I actually have that a lot. That's a genuine struggle, especially on spaces and public speaking. I often come across as being a lot of people will say that I'm arrogant and that I'm just basically speaking down, that kind of thing. But I'm genuinely a very, very empathic person, and it's upsetting sometimes. But yes, I appreciate you noticing that. It's really good feedback. Thanks.
Great feedback, Joaquin. Anybody noticing how deeply insightful Joaquin is and the perspectives that he's pulling out of the things that he's hearing? Everyone can't do that. But when you're becoming more confident and effective in your communication, that's a skill that you have the ability to develop when we take the time and listen intently, and we're intentional about understanding and hearing what people have to say. It makes a difference. So that's awesome, Joaquin. I love that. Truths.
Okay. Dave, I actually heard a lot of power and powerfulness in your 1 minute of amazing sharing that you did about yourself. We heard vulnerability, we heard skill, we heard let me see, your profession. So you shared so much in 1 minute, but I would never take it as you were being arrogant. You had that humility in speaking, because by sharing everything you shared, your vulnerability, your state of being, your job that you do, and your struggle, what you did was you served so many people across the board by saying, okay, but I'm here, I have these struggles, these skills, these abilities, this is the kind of job that I do. And I didn't know I was going to do this today, but here I am, I'm sharing. So if this is at your natural state or at your surprise state, then I think that you are amazing. And I think you need to continue being yourself and sharing, and come to our space where no one will accuse you of being arrogant. This space have grown us because it is a safe space for everyone across the board to be able to be themselves, but develop from there as well. So thank you for sharing what you shared, and you have helped me understand that there are people out there who are amazing behind these faces and pictures, that are willing to share and serve others without even knowing they're serving. So thank you so much, Dave.
No, thank you. I actually made me think even further on the difference between the way I speak in my professional capacity and the way because I generally don't speak in a more private, in a more vulnerable fashion, and I think I need to do some recordings and comparisons of myself in the two settings and try and listen to the differences. It'll be an interesting experiment.
Absolutely. And it's those experiments that will allow you to get to the place that you're trying to get to, is having that understanding and that the insight and perspective that other people have of their experience with you. And there are times that in the past that I've asked the question, what is it that I did or said that offended you? What was it about my approach, or how could I say it differently that would not cause you to feel offended? And don't be afraid to do that, depending on who it is. There's some people it just doesn't matter, so keep that in mind. Some people it won't matter at all, but when it's someone that you have a bit of a relationship with, if they share that with you and it's worth listening to, then ask the question and get that feedback from them, because listening to the recording may give you some perspective, but then you receive it a different way than other people may receive what you're hearing as well. So keep that in mind. But what I will say as feedback is, in the beginning, I love that you redirected the question, or you redirected the question rather than just telling me why you're special based on what I asked. You gave me the response based on what you felt like you had to offer. And you said, I'm more interesting and unique rather than special, not necessarily special. And immediately when you began to speak, just listening to the quality and tone of your voice, it suggested that you may use a microphone and that you are thoughtful about the way you present yourself. So you wanted your sound to be right. So that already told me that gave me information about you in and of itself. And that you mentioned being on the spectrum. So I'm already alert and aware that I need to extend grace, because if you say that you're on the spectrum, then there may be aspects of you speaking that may be a little more difficult or a little more uncomfortable for you than the average person who isn't on the spectrum. So that opened my mind up for that, and to understand that there are things that might happen a little differently for you. But your pace was very good, as Michael said. And I love the thoughtfulness about what you shared, that you understand that focusing on your specialty and your expertise is a comfort zone for you, and you're able to manage that well, but dealing with people is a challenge. So you expressed clearly who you are, and I thought it was a great job with what you did. And again, I'm thankful that you came back to the space, and I hope you continue coming and doing this as we go forward, because we're all growing together. None of us have it perfect. We don't strive for perfection. We strive for progress. And every step forward is making us all better. And as I said a moment ago, even giving feedback is practice for people that choose to do it, because we're all developing our ability to speak and communicate effectively.